And, of course, as always, this is brought to you guys by BetUS. The doc, he treats us every single Wednesday. Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. Go read it. I mean, go read. Go read. Not enough reading in today's society. All right, go read Doc's articles. Get your information.
I started reading recently.
Host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Happy for you, Boone. Please welcome into the show, Mr. John Maakaron, the Doc. John?
What's up, fellas? What's up, chat? It's a good day talking football after a win. I think everybody will be in a better mood, and big week ahead, big game. But, man, the Lions got roughed up against the Cardinals, man. A lot of injuries.
Yeah, well, Doc, I'll ask you, we'll get to the Seahawks in a little bit here, just about the game itself. Very physical game, Doc. A lot of injuries. You know, you had Brian Branch get knocked out, unfortunately. Davenport out for the season. Frank Ragnow, tough, Doc. He's out. Aleem McNeil's out. I get it's the NFL, but your thoughts on the game, getting a win. The second half didn't look pretty, Doc, but they got a win. And they suffered a lot of injuries. Just your thoughts on everything coming out from the game. Any of your thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah, no doubt. Before I get into all that kind of stuff, I'm glad, Booner, that you read the site. It was real weird. First and foremost, are you understanding what you're reading? SI has standards of how we write, so I'm making sure you comprehend what you're reading.
I was able to get some of it, Doc.
It was so weird. On Monday, I had the story. I knew from a couple weeks back that the Lions were going to don the black uniforms against the Seahawks, but I always want to time it when the most people read it. The most people are on our site on Monday, and I had it up at 8 a.m., and all of a sudden, okay, it was good. A lot of good, interesting response to it. Then all of a sudden, about 4, 5, 6 o'clock, once the Lions teased it, then everybody started tweeting it at like 5 p.m., so I got a lot of readership on it, but it was weird to write something and then to have someone that's in this conversation asking me at 4 o'clock, hey, do you know anything about the black uniform? Yeah, I wrote about it on the Sports Illustrated Lions site with a big, bold headline. So I would recommend, for those that are new in the chat, Detroit Lions on SI has the news, all news regarding the Lions within 15, 20 minutes. That's what we pride ourselves on. And this football team deserves 24-hour attention because of the fact that it was a good comeback win. Man, you just got to credit this football team. When they have a setback, when people are riled up and jumping off the bandwagon, not being calm, I thought that part of the reason why the 4 experts on Detroit Lions on SI picked the Lions to win, and I was able to calm down some nervous fans on Twitter, was the fact that 29 straight times, now 30, 29 opportunities when the Lions have lost a game in the last 2 years, they've bounced back. That is really something that this football team should hang their head on. Give credit to this football team that when they have a setback, they're able to bounce back. And I thought all the boxes they needed to check against the Cardinals, they did. They contained Kyler Murray. They allowed him over 31 yards, which helped the gamblers who were out there betting the prop player bet for 31.5 yards, which was crazy low. I thought that was great. I hit on that. So I thought that holding them to 10 points was great, but yet still some things to clean up. But the key story from the game was all the injuries and how they're going to bounce back. And we'll start. The reason why you didn't hear a lot of news today was because of the Monday Night Football game. The player off day was Wednesday. Practices kick off Thursday. Tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, there will be Lions practice and Lions news. So you'll start to learn about some of the guys in terms of their involvement, starting with Dan Campbell giving his update on Thursday.
What's going on, guys? It's Jeff Iafrate. I interrupted today's video to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, and that is BetUS. And they are offering the Crunch Time Sports community 150% on your guys' first 3 deposits with promo code YouTube150. Promo code YouTube150. Head to betus.com. They have a ton of lines that you can get in on now. Like this one that I really do like a lot. Aiden Hutchinson, 2-win Defensive Player of the Year. He comes in with the 6th best odds at plus 1,100. I'm going to go ahead and put $100 to win $1,100 and lock it in. There you go. And not just this. There's a ton of other lines, Detroit Lions related, and go check them out only on BetUS. Let's get back to the video.
Doc, you're a legend. I love you, Doc. I just want to throw it out there. I did just hear you say you calmed the people down on Twitter. That wasn't on purpose. You did calm the people down. You're like me. Me and you are the same person. I'm glad you came around with me.
You're more alike than you two.
I'm glad
realize.
you. Yes, I'm glad you could come. I'm glad you could come around with me. I love you, Doc. I do want to just the biggest thing to me, actually, I think out of this week though, that is concerning for me, and we've talked about it all week now on the show. There's Marcus Davenport injury. And then obviously Dan Campbell went on 97.1 and made some weird comments about James Houston. And then he makes the comments in regards to, hey, we are looking to bring someone in. Like it essentially is what he said, whether it's bringing someone up or if it's getting someone from the outside. Where do you think Dan goes with this? And really, Doc, how big of a deal is this? Because this was a top 10 defense right now. And you're looking at one of the better defenders on that defensive line. And it's the same, like Aleem McNeil went out with the injury. What is your thought on the defensive line, the injuries that are happening, and who's going to fill in? How is this rotation going to look? And do you think they're going to trade for someone and bring someone in?
Yeah, I love the initial reaction was people were upset talking about Brad Holmes and the signing of Marcus Davenport. Look, it was, I understand why, and I understood the concern as well, because you looked at Marcus Davenport, couldn't stay healthy, but the Lions had familiarity with him, and so they took a gamble. And that's what Brad Holmes has been trying to do in terms of free agency at times, is go for guys. Guys, look, you can't really have it both ways. They really spent a lot of money in this offseason to sign some of their own. So they wanted to, if they were going to dole out some free agent contracts, they wanted to really do their research. That's just what they do. Unfortunately, Marcus Davenport had the history with the Lions with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn, so they felt comfortable bringing him in. But that hit was vicious. It's not because he's injury prone. It's because some dude took a whack at his elbow and tore his triceps. So that's a football injury. It's unfortunate for a guy that has battled back, and you saw some potential when he was out there. So now the Lions, the defensive line has been really stout and really solid against the run. You like what you see there. DJ Reader in his 2 games, you start to see a little bit of the impact. They're giving him a little bit, 25 snaps each of the first couple games. But I'm confident that the next 2 guys up, Josh Pascal and Levi Onwuzurike, along with the young rookie Mekhi Wingo, I think those 3 guys are the reason, like you guys were talking earlier, are the reason why James Houston is sitting on the bench. And it's just tougher because in the end, the bottom line is James Houston's just not better than the 3 options that are ahead of him. And that's what the coaching staff feels. So he's probably, maybe we'll be inactive again. But again, I see, like you guys were talking about, a limited role. But you got to talk about it. I think you guys are right. Josh Pascal shows flashes. So it's just one of those things where you got to see him put it together week after week. And maybe this is his opportunity. But at the same token, Levi Onwuzurike will allow potentially Aiden to go to the other side if need be and give you some options along the edge spot as well. So you have options. It's a big blow, but really what kind of impact did it really have? He was, only out there for 2 games. So I think the defensive line will not have that much of a setback with the injury to Davenport. I think that this will be the opportunity for Josh Pascal to show, hey, this is why you were a draft pick that was invested in. And now if you stay healthy, another player that kind of has battled injuries up and down, if he stays healthy, man, I like what he can do. He just got to be somebody that's a little bit more consistent.
And Doc, I want to ask you, staying on the Arizona Cardinals game, just before we get more into the Seahawks game, what was your opinion on watching that offense in the first half versus in the second half? Because we talk about Jared Goff starting 14 for 14, and then that second half, at least for Goff, looked dramatically different. I don't think he absolutely sucked in that second half, but it wasn't as good as in that first half. What do you think it is still that they're not getting on track in that second half?
Yeah, it is interesting, right? You see the defense makes adjustments, and I thought that Arizona brought a solid game plan in the second half. First and foremost, that first half was solid with the run game. You saw Jared Goff be efficient. And then in the second half, you just looked at it, and it just wasn't as crisp. I thought that, the Cardinals got into it as well. And you just looked at it from the perspective of execution. It just wasn't as crisp as it was in the first half. And look, the offense, it just, it's really weird when you try to look at the breakdown of what happens offensively. You realize, okay, you have so many weapons, but at the same token, you start to see a little bit what teams are doing in terms of pressuring Goff, putting guys in the middle, having, kind of forcing, the outs. They're trying to limit the explosives. They do what good defenders do. And I just think it's good NFL defense that the Lions are facing. And then for what you got to do, I just think that in the second half, I just think they needed maybe that one explosive play to kind of loosen things up. I just thought that they tried a little bit with Jameson Williams. Maybe they should have tried a little bit more, but the injury to Sam Laporta kind of slowed things down. That's always going to be a factor. The man is amazing. And I just thought that once he went down there at the end of the first half, he wasn't the same guy, and it just changes things a little bit. And I just thought that the Lions held on. And look, it's actually interesting to think about, because one of the narratives that came out was, hey, this Lions team doesn't need to score 30 points. Maybe they just need to get to like 23. And if you have your defense only giving up between 15 and 20 points every week, now you look at it and you say, you know what? The offense can take its time. And that's the benefit of having the upgraded talent that you saw, is that, yeah, the offense wasn't great, didn't click, didn't get any points in the second half, but you did enough in that first half with that highlight, razzle dazzle, and all that good fun stuff. But in the end, you know, I do think that while this offense takes its time to click, it's great to have a defense that you can actually punt the ball and kind of have some confidence they'll get a stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of stay on the defense. The thing we've been talking about a lot, Carlton Davis, and Carlton is an improvement of what the Lions have had, but it seems like at times, Doc, he has like lapses where he doesn't look as good. I think the secondary this week will be tested. Obviously, the Seahawks wide receiver core, they have a plethora of weapons. What do you think of the matchup this week? I know I saw a tweet, and it was from a Seahawks reporter, and it was like asking Seahawks fans, what Jared Goff do you think the Lions will show this week? Is it the Jared Goff that's played the Seahawks and played very well, or Jared Goff who played the Ravens with Mike McDonald as the DC and it wasn't good at all? What's your take on how this matchup will look like, and do you believe it'll be another shootout type of game, or will it be more defensive, given both defenses have improved? Where are you at with Jared Goff in the matchup this week?
Yeah, no doubt, right? The matchups against the Seahawks, it's really interesting, and I'm curious to talk to Dan on Thursday to kind of get his sense, what he thinks. Sometimes teams just have your number. They know your tendency, but that was Pete Carroll. But, yeah, you're right. McDonald did have success with Baltimore, and you looked at it from the perspective of, well, if you're going to game plan against Goff, you got to bring the pressure. You got to clog the middle. You got to force them to, you know, make some decisions. And then you saw that interception. It was a great defensive play, man. That, you know, the Cardinals defender there put himself in the exact right spot where Goff didn't see him. So this is a game where you saw, too, like we've always talked about in football, that turnover that Kirby Joseph forced, that's momentum. That gives you opportunities to have another offensive possession. But to me, I think the matchup that everyone's going to be paying attention to is DK Metcalf against the Lions secondary. Can Carlton Davis and Terry Arnold continue the second half momentum that they had? Man, it was you know, interesting that Terry Arnold started a little bit slow against Harrison, but then he started to show flashes of why he's the man. And it was cool to see. He was hip stride for stride with Marvin Harrison. They took him out of the game. Carlton Davis, look, you know, it's still a work in progress. He's doing well, but at times, you know, he is getting targeted. He's got another challenge. He is going up against the top creme de la creme of NFL wide receivers, and you're getting about as good as you can expect. And hey, the starting point is better than it was last year. So that gives people room for confidence. Is it going to be a shootout? I don't know, because if you look at prime A strategy, the Lions should run the football. They should run the heck out of the football and control the clock and muck it up and try to make it a one-score game in the fourth quarter and then take advantage of your opportunities. But you never know. The factor that could change that is if Seattle gets out to a lead, which I kind of hope happens. I hope Seattle gets out to like a 14-3 lead. That will force the Lions to kind of adjust and adapt, and let's see if they can do it. They've shown that they can do it in the past. So you need sometimes the way the game flows to kind of dictate how things are. But early on, you saw against the Cardinals, pound the rock. People are going to be excited to see it, and I'm excited to see the continued growth of Gibbs and Montgomery in this offense. It's going to be cool to see.
What you just said there, Doc, like running the ball, do you like feel like a little bit? And I was kind of getting the feeling towards the second half, and I know Laporta got hurt and felt like they were trying to force maybe a little too much to JMO. I know they had 3 targets, but in the second half, they're trying to get it downfield. Do you feel like Ben Johnson's still kind of getting some rust off and trying to figure out what it's like to have a player like J-Mo in this offense? Obviously the first couple of weeks they targeted him a ton. Then they went back to the run game this last week, and then second half they tried to go back to him. And it feels like he's still trying to get a good feel for the offense. And do you think that comes out this week, or do you think that's ever going to come out, or we're going to see just basically a run? Where do you see this offense going? And with Ben Johnson, does it feel a little off to you? I mean, at least for me, it does. I feel like some of the play calls are a little off. Do you get that same feeling or no?
No. If you study defense, everyone's been talking about it this week, Booner. The too high safety. Everybody's not letting the ball go deep.
The Mel Kiper.
Yeah, you look at it and you say, yeah, that's how you do it. Is you prevent prevent the over the top stuff. You give the
too high safeties.
Yeah. You look at it. I wouldn't do that. I love it because Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch have been fun to watch. But it's common defense that teams are studying extra what the Lions are doing, and so that's why Ben Johnson has to adapt to adaptations he's seeing from defenses. And clearly, the first thing every defensive coordinator is going to do is turn on the film and be like, "Holy shit, Jameson Williams, he can embarrass us. We got to bracket him. We got to make sure that the cornerback has safety help over the top so that this doesn't happen, or that if something does happen, you limit don't let them get into the end zone." That's how the game is played at this point in time. So for Jameson Williams, it's tough because Ben Johnson said, because he was asked, he's like, there's going to be games where it's going to be a rotating situation where sometimes it's Amon-Ra who's not going to have any numbers. Sometimes it's going to be Laporta. Sometimes it's going to be Jameson. It's just tough because Jameson Williams has that speed, and sometimes you recognize that it's just really tough to time a deep pass to that degree. Sometimes he's just so fast, and Goff launches it, and you saw that he overthrows Jameson Williams. It's better to see that than an underthrow. It's just one of those things where, I do expect Jameson to be involved, but early on, the best way I think to involve him is end arounds, handoffs, different ways, kind of like how the 49ers use Deebo Samuel. Sometimes you can use them in creative ways, in space. You can use them in different opportunities to use the speed as opposed to just launching it deep. But the way in which, guys, it's straight up football. The way in which you loosen up a defense is you pound the rock. Then you give the opportunity to then confuse the defense, whether it's going to be play or run or pass. And then hopefully you get that extra step where Jameson Williams can time it just right. But the thing that, if you watch the film, that's a little bit something that maybe you could say is a critique or a gripe that I have. Ben Johnson's offense is precise. It's a timing-based, route-based offense. And if one person's not at the wide receiver depth where they need to be, and Goff is just a little bit pressured, there's just not that much of a great opportunity for Goff to go off script. And sometimes you'll see it where it gets bogged down. And I think Mike McDonald is going to take advantage of that. So that's why it could be low scoring. So that's where the key is to get the special teams to be well with field position and to get those turnovers on defense. And I do think that Geno Smith could be suspect for some turnovers the Lions' way. Maybe even Terry Arnold getting his first interception.
And talking about Terry Arnold with the Lions secondary, Doc, you look at Seattle's secondary, and that's arguably probably the strength of their team right now. You look at the Lions wide receiver core, I don't think it's the strength of their team, but it's a pretty damn good wide receiver core. What do you expect out of that matchup when you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams and company versus Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Julian Love, all the guys that they have going on in that secondary for Seattle?
Yeah, you look at it and you say, you know what, favors the Lions, being that it's at home. I expect that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get a lot of touches early. I think that, look, it's always something where the first and most important thing is get into rhythm, however you want to do it, whether that be short passes to Gibbs, whether that be establishing the run. I just think that once you get into that offensive rhythm, move the football, get the success and getting 3-4 yards and staying ahead of this change, I think it's going to be great. I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown could be the guy this week that breaks out and can be unstoppable. I just think that there are situations in which Amon-Ra St. Brown is I thought the game that he had against the Cardinals was stellar. I just think that he was just on the verge of breaking out, 10 catches, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he's just on the verge of getting targeted a little bit more. And you hope that, that's the go-to guy. You hope that they win the battles. I expect them to make their plays. Again, probably the big thing that you look for is if they probably get 3 explosives over 15 yards, they probably have a good chance to get into the end zone and keep doing their thing. And that's the most important thing. They had the issue in the red zone. They took care of it. And I think this one as well, red zone efficiency this week is going to be key, because as long as it's a close game, you don't want, to settle for field goals when those touchdowns are available. But I have a good feeling it's going to be a close game, but it could go either way at this point in time. And I still, at this point, don't have an official prediction as to what I think is going to end up happening. I know it's probably 24-23 either way, but those injuries, once we learn a little bit more about Frank, about Brian Branch, we'll start to see a little bit how it's going to shake out on the line side.
Well, Doc, another week, another backup tackle against Hutchinson. Come on, you'll take those. You'll take those wins. Aiden leading the league in sacks this week. They're starting right tackles out. They had to call Jason Peters just to have a meeting, all right, just to see what Jason Peters, 42 freaking years old, Doc. No offense, a very young age. He still can accomplish some great things. But in football, it is old. They're struggling at tackle. What do you make of that and the importance of Aiden going out there and wrecking this game? Because we need him. The Lions need him every week. But this week specifically, Doc, against the backup, and I know they're going to adjust, just like you said, they're going to adjust with Aiden and try and chip him and double team him. But especially with how the Seahawks have been protecting Geno, they're giving up like 2-3 sacks a game. What's Hutch's importance this week facing a backup, and how do you see it playing out?
Yeah, it's great, man. What a great opportunity to go up against reserves. I heard, Jason Peters, my goodness, veteran. So you look at it and you say, if you want additional numbers on just how good the season has been to start for Aiden Hutchinson, we looked at the numbers, by the numbers, Detroit Lions on SI, just to show you how well he's done pressure-wise, leading the league in sacks, PFF grades galore, everything coming up roses for Aiden Hutchinson. Check it out. It's good stat-based, not copy and pasted, all researched in terms of information that you can learn about Aiden Hutchinson on the site. So, man, take advantage. Yeah, this defense, this defensive line starts and is, man, you look at the season that he's had, challenged to be the best in the NFL, and he's starting to show it. And, yeah, he's benefiting from playing against reserves and guys that are not starters, so take advantage. Why not? You still got to go out there and execute, spin moves for days. And I had asked him, and we talked about it before, I had asked him, I said, after the first game, why are you a better pass rusher? And he talked about his process, all the work that he's done, but he really wants to be a three-dimensional pass rusher, and he's adding more tools to his arsenal. And I think he's driven. I really do think he was bothered by the critique of people last year saying, hey, just pressures. And he was contributing quite a bit last year. But everybody kind of tends to look at sacks and just, hey, what's your production number? What do you – and so now that you see that he's able to impact the game, man, it helps the defense. This is part of the reason the defense is not giving up more than 20 points. The quarterbacks are under duress. And once you set the challenge for the defense, hey, don't let Kyler Murray out of containment. You pretty much did a good job, and you forced a turnover. So, hey, man, Aiden Hutchinson, he's the real deal. It's fun to watch. Strong motor, doesn't give up, doesn't take plays off, and he's a great leader of the defense. And he's about to get, when that contract comes up, the numbers are going to be astounding at the money he's going to command. Whew.
Oh, hey, you already know, Doc, I'm a defensive player of the year. Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, he's got a bag coming. He's got a bag.
Another leader on the defense, the linebacking crew there. Alex Anzalone, the injury, and then the Derek Barnes injury to follow. Moving forward, Doc, obviously, I would like to know if you think, is Anzo going to be good to go? Obviously, the concussion protocol can go from, a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks, depending on the severity of it. What are your thoughts on him playing this week? Will we have the fearless leader with the green dot back? I guess this is like a three-part question. That with Anzo, Jack Campbell, how did you think that he kind of stepped up? And then on top of that, with the Derek Barnes injury, is that Rodrigo filling into the Sam linebacker spot? Who's going to kind of take that over there? I'm interested to hear what your thoughts on the linebacking room kind of as a whole.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Alex Anzalone, I think they took precaution because we saw him at practice. He was listed as questionable, so it's probably trending in the right direction that he comes back this week. I thought that they felt like, that Dan Campbell said that he feels so comfortable that the linebackers unit is the unit on the team with the most depth. And you looked at it and you said, okay, without Anzalone, the linebackers did well. I didn't think that they had any glaring issues or things of that nature. I think that you're absolutely right. I think Rodrigo gets an opportunity. They just today earlier, I saw the report that Beauplan is back on the practice squad. Maybe he gets a call up this week as somebody as well for Barnes. But I just think you got Neiman as well. So you have Jalen Reeves-Maben, who's been somebody that can be used on third down. So they got a nice mix. Rodrigo getting an opportunity. I think that the linebackers unit having some continuity and some experience, they just challenge each other, and they treat it as such that, hey, each one of them can have an opportunity to start. And that's why, you know, when training camp was happening, people said, yeah, they could keep 6 linebackers, and they all treated as starters. They all compete. They're all friendly. So they're learning together and they execute. So I'm not concerned about Derek Barnes. It is a loss. Unfortunately, you know, it's unfortunate now that the knee injury is, you know, when you hear about potential surgery or looking at how the knee is going to handle potential scarring, does he need surgery? That's just kind of talk that's going to indicate, you know, a long time before Barnes ends up returning now that he's on IR. So it's going to be, you know, clearly next man up mentality. I do think that Malcolm Rodriguez brings some energy. And for Jack Campbell, I just think that early on, people were kind of questioning that he wasn't playing as much as many people would like. Now that he'll have more of an opportunity to play, we can get more of a broader sense of how he looks in coverage. That's the spot that's got to kind of pick up a little bit. Against the run, he knows what's up. He's stout. He's reading his keys. He can run downhill. The part that for any linebacker at this level is being at the right spot in coverage, understanding the responsibility, and getting there as fast as possible. But the linebackers, they'll have a test because, you know, if Kenneth Walker returns and Charbonnet, that's a nice duo that the Seahawks got.
Yeah.
It's a tough duo.
Tough duo.
And something that has not been tough so far this year is Seattle's schedule that they've had, Doc. And when you look at that, they've played week 1, they open up against the Broncos, then they get the Patriots in MetLife, or not MetLife, in whatever you want to call it, in the Meadowlands, whatever. Played in New England, then they go and they play at home against the Miami Dolphins, but Skylar Thompson's their quarterback. When you look at that schedule and then you see, okay, now they're playing a legitimate team, the Detroit Lions. Do you think this game could somewhat be a wake-up call for Seattle?
Coming to Detroit, yeah, it could be a wake-up call. You know what's crazy about playing Detroit is you're going to be in a physical battle. The Lions are going to come to hit you. They're going to come to mess things up, and they're going to, you know, handle business. And look, Lando, you might be a little narcissistic there to need 9 comments to get a shout out. You only need 1. I can see it. I can think that we can see that you need attention, and the DOC is kind enough to do that for you. Look, I think that with the Detroit Lions in a game now, it's great because before the Lions would sometimes beat themselves, penalties, a lot of errors, and things like that. Now, when you watch a Lions game, it's toe-to-toe, mano-a-mano, and we're talking about execution in the red zone. We're talking about game plan, finding the right target, mixing and matching and adjustments. So it's going to be a great contest, and I think the Seahawks have just been a model of consistency. And it's one of those things when you look at that team on film, they don't do one thing like spectacularly well, but they're just steady in everything that they do. And that's also the sign of a good football team, built in the trenches, can run the football effectively, got the home run threat with Charbonnet, and got the pounder in Kenneth Walker. And then Geno Smith has just been a stabilizing veteran force. And so when you got a quarterback that makes plays to Metcalf and you got the number 1, now you have an opportunity to win games, and then you just got to play well defensively. And I think to me, I was a little suspect when they hired McDonald based on the other options out there, but he's kind of come in and brought some swagger to that team. And I think that that's why this game could be very entertaining for both teams based on the game plan that is brought. Who's going to take the first chances? Who's going to be willing to gamble a little bit? Who flinches first? And how do they handle any potential setbacks? But, man, the one thing that I don't know if I've heard you guys talked about yet, but the fact of the matter is Jack Fox has been balling out. And when you can change the field position with a 50-yard punt or more, and have the hang time that he's got and the accuracy that he's got, that gives you also a little bit more comfort that if the offense takes a little bit of time to get rolling, he can pin them behind the 20-yard line consistently. Did it like 4 times in the second half. Jack Fox, you know, field optimization specialist, NFC special teams player of the week. He deserves his flowers. And that can be something that I know you don't talk about it too often, but if the offense is not clicking, hey, sometimes the punter's got to do his job and pin the opponents deep and flip the script on the field position. And Jack Fox, there's nobody better at it.
And Doc, when you look around the NFC right now, the 49ers struggling with injuries. A lot of teams are struggling with injuries. This #1 seed in the NFC still wide open. And the NFC North specifically, with the Vikings looking the way they do, what do you make of it? What do you make of the Vikings starting off the way they started? Now the Packers winning with Malik Willis. What do you think of how the NFC North's kind of looks so far?
Yeah, that's a great topic. You looked at Sam Darnold and everybody threw him away, looked at him as a cast-off, and for him to go to the right situation, it goes to show you maybe even now, maybe not this week, but next week we got to have the talk on all those haters of Malik Willis. Looking like surrounded by some talent. Malik Willis is not looking like the bum that he, was portrayed to be. And it really does go to show you that if you're in a good organization with right management and a good quarterback that's playing well in the right system, O'Connell and LaFleur seem like they can kind of put the pieces around players for success. And I just think that those are the best coaches, are the ones that take the talent that they have, understand their philosophy, but at the same time have the ability to, be flexible and adapt to the talent that they have. So you look at the Vikings, when you got Justin Jefferson, he's all world. And that's a nice player he'll make a guy, I was talking to an SI editor, about the Vikings quarterback and Darnold, and everybody was like, if Darnold can avoid that stupid mistake that got him chewed out by his coach last week, if he can avoid that dumb knucklehead play, he's pretty solid. He can make the throws. He's got the experience and he's got some talent around him. And I think the games against the division foes are going to be very much a challenge. And we knew that going into it. The Vikings and the Packers are going to be a formidable foe, and the Bears are going to be bottom dwellers, hopefully, with their young, inexperienced quarterback. So the NFC North, it's going to be a challenge. And also, too, if you want to get a sense of what's going on, every Friday I check in with the other 3 division writers, the Bears, Packers, Vikings. We do a roundtable. We kind of talk about what's going on in the division. So every Friday, check in with Lions on SI, understand what's going on. We check in and kind of talk about where they stand. And I can give you a little preview. I got some of the responses for this week. Some of the writers are starting to put the Vikings ahead of the Lions in the rankings. A lot of them have Vikings Lions. I'm like, I got to have a talk with these guys. I haven't had a chance to, but a lot of the writers are starting to think, you know what, with Justin Jefferson and the big play capability, maybe the Vikings are being perceived as being a little bit better than the Lions right now, but that's because the Lions offense has not been in 5th gear yet.
Hey, Doc, I'm with you on that. I mean, we could break some bread on that one. I'm actually shocked. I just thought of this. We haven't really asked you or kind of talked about the situation with Frank Ragnow and the offensive line. Frank can't go Monday. You've been around the team all offseason long. What are your thoughts? How do they move this and navigate this around? Does Graham go to center? Who then steps into guard? Is it Nice? Is it Nice or is it Yodi? Like, how is that going to work? And even with that, how confident are you? You were there as well in New York for the preseason games and the home game as well. Just seeing that backup offensive line work. Are you confident they can go out there and still run the ball at a high level without Frank if he's not ready to go on Monday night?
Yeah, you said it. I fully expect that Frank Ragnow is not going to play. Look, partially torn pec with the bye week. You know what? You let him rest for a week or two and then see. But look, man, the guy's crazy. The guy wants to get out there and play. To hear that, and really a couple years ago played with the issue with his throat. Now has a partially torn pec and still plays against the Cardinals. Oh my God, the guy's crazy. And I do think Graham Glasgow will shift to center, and potentially you move Coyote Awosika to the left guard spot. Maybe at times you spell him with Sorsdahl. Unfortunately, Sorsdahl hasn't done all that well in the preseason, a little bit more inconsistent. So I think Awosika is a little bit more consistent at that spot. So we'll see how they mix and match. We'll have our first couple reports in terms of at least, the availability and things like that. In terms of if Frank Ragnow doesn't practice, we'll get a sense of that. But I just think that you want to be cautious with Frank Ragnow. It's going to impact things. I do think Graham Glasgow is a suitable replacement, but at the same token, it would have been nice to see this offensive line all together and healthy for an extended period of time. But it just, listen, the Cardinals brought their physicality. They played a tough physical game, and the Lions, it was interesting. They had all those injuries the day that they gave the game ball to Brett Fisher, which I thought was like, okay, maybe that was like a motivational factor because he was going to have to put in some overtime this week.
No, it is very true, Doc. And something that I wanted to ask you about that I've been kind of talking about, but I haven't really got any outside opinions other than the boys here. Do you think there will be like an effect that we see from going from Pete Carroll to Mike Macdonald this week, as far as like Pete Carroll? He's a very good coach, arguably Hall of Fame coach, and he's had the Lions numbers for a good amount of their previous matchups. Do you think that could have some effect when it comes to the win-loss column with the Detroit Lions this week?
Yeah, I think the Seahawks look like a well-coached team. I have not seen anything that indicates that the drop-off is massively different. I think Macdonald, from the perspective of what he did at Michigan, got a lot of people's attention, and then going to the Ravens. Look, man, the Ravens are legit. So that's something where you are an individual that can do some things, and he got kind of fast-tracked through in terms of his success level and the attention that he brought. So I think that when you look at, teams nowadays, it's, the coaching, the expertise has gone up, the amount of hours has gone up, the film watching. And I think the aspect of the game that more and more people are paying attention to is the analytics. And I think that analytically, a lot of these organizations are advanced in terms of understanding what type of player they want to bring. And the Seahawks just have a certain type of player, physical, smart football player that doesn't end up beating themselves. And you look at it from the perspective of just in any football team, the quarterback, Geno Smith is cerebral. Yeah, I do think that he has a ceiling of his talent, but just like anybody else, if you don't pressure him, if you don't win your battles on the defensive line, he'll pick you apart. He's seen it all. But I do think that he's going to be scrambling for his life. You got to contain him. And I do think that you can, in the secondary with the linebackers, kind of take a little bit of what the Cardinals did, get a linebacker in space there, maybe confuse him a little bit, force him to make a throw that he does not want to make. And I just think that, look, you drafted, Kenneth Walker, and, the injury stunk because he was on my fantasy team, but I like what he can bring to the table in terms of a reliable runner if he can stay healthy. And I just think that when you look at the Seahawks as a team, you just kind of know that they're just going to be a tough physical team. And then you just got to stop. You got to stop Lockett and DK Metcalf. My God, it's going to be a challenge. Metcalf, I think, not this last game, a couple weeks ago, just went off and had himself a nice day. Yeah. So you got to take care of DK Metcalf and find out where that dude is. Otherwise, that can be a big problem. But I think the Lions, the good thing is that they can go toe-to-toe with the coaches that they got. And Aaron Glenn deserves all the flowers he got this week for the work that he's done through the first 3 games. But remember, the last couple games, the Seahawks have had some success offensively. They've kind of felt comfortable at Ford Field, and they've just kind of made it a track meet. So I'm curious to see the way the game takes shape this week.
Doc, I got to ask you because shout out Christian. He wrote a great article, and it was internal, external options replacing Marcus Davenport. And in that article, Doc, he mentioned a guy that I've been seeing a lot on Lions Twitter. I know you're on there. You see it too. Plays, for not a Lion, but for a Bengal. Trey Hendrickson, who has 2 years left on his deal. Bengals are 0-3. What's your take on the is it fantasy land, or is it something that you're behind? You think could be a great addition? Where are you at with adding a guy like Trey Hendrickson? Is it realistic, Doc?
Yeah, it's realistic because you look at it from the perspective of, is this football team going to be competitive throughout the year? Yes. Is it, a player that publicly stated he wanted to be traded? Yes. Is it a football team that at 0-3 could down the road find it that, maybe it's time to move on and trade some assets? So I do think that the opportunity to upgrade is there, but I do think that's why we did both, is the opportunity to look at Josh Pascal and evaluate him fully. I think the Lions like their own guys first, but if there's an opportunity out there, I mean, first and foremost, I would swing for the fences and call, see about Max Crosby. Why not? I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't think the Raiders are ever going to trade him. See about Hassan Reddick. The problem is he's going to want to get paid. Hendrickson makes the most sense of the guys that people are talking about, and I can see where people put the puzzle pieces together, and it would be intriguing. I think he would be a fit. I think it'd be something where you get some you do get some, upgraded, pass rush playing opposite Aiden Hutchinson. You'll get some opportunity to put up some numbers. Problem is, when you got Joe Burrow, you got Jamar Chase, it's hard to send that signal, because once you make trades, that's a signal your season's done.
Right.
So I think the Bengals have had a rough start, but they're one of those teams you just don't discount just yet. So let's wait and see what their record is going to look like by the bye week, and then by the trade deadline, and then you'll have an opportunity to see which teams are serious and which teams you could kind of pinch from. But I loved seeing that. I love the commenter that said, "Hey Doc, write some clickbait articles about Max Crosby." I'm sorry, Cartier, we did that last year, so I wore that. I wore that out. So now it's a little bit more. What are some things that would be interesting? Now it's just about the games. You guys are loving the football stuff. So leave some comments on some more clickbait ideas. Maybe I'll use one and credit you for it.
Hey, what about this one? Do some hit pieces, Doc. Hit pieces.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the guy that covers the Raiders, he's real cool, and I shot him a message. I'm like, would they ever? They're never trading. Max Crosby is a Raider. I mean, Antonio, if the coach wasn't a defensive coach, I think that maybe you could entertain that. But I think Max Crosby would trading him would send the fan base into panic mode at the highest level. So it's not happening. I'm sorry. I love that. That's the name that everybody says, but I just think that Hendrickson is more realistic.
Hey, talk about hit pieces, Doc. You were texting me the other day, and I was reading, and Doc, I do read your stuff. When you say, Boone, read this, I read it. The Dan Campbell stuff. Can you explain a little update to the people who are in our chat, and we can send them, we can put the link too, and try and get them to go over there. But I'm just interested, like, can you give an update to the people on this Dan Campbell situation and people finding out his house? Like, that's a crazy story, how that all came out.
So let me give you guys some behind the scenes, because it was something that, you started to piece together. And so for Tafka, I got to let you know, today was a slow day because the Lions did not have any coverage. So actually, I was watching Netflix all day. So today I'm drinking tea.
There we go, Doc.
I want it to be the utmost. I didn't want to have to drop another bomb on Booner. I felt like it was a 10-7 score last week. I wanted to kind of let him feel his confidence again so he can talk trash about me at the beginning of the show. It's okay. I got you.
I was ready to go, Doc, and you came in so nice. I mean, what are we doing here?
We don't contrive debates here. We debate when there's stuff to be debated. And on a victory Monday, on a victory Wednesday, we're all good. We're all smiles. We all can cheer it up. But it was interesting in that Fox 2 said that there were police reports made. So the first story I wrote was, okay, based on the Fox 2 information, that Dan Campbell, after the 49ers game, reporting the facts that there was a police report filed. Okay, so once that takes place, clearly, then all police records are public knowledge. So all you got to do is fill out a Freedom of Information Act. So I knew I was going to write it because that story did very well. And, the readership was super high, just beyond even the football stuff. So here's remember, I'm a podcaster, not just yet an officially trained journalist. So like a dumbass, the first request I did was last week, but I only requested 2013. And so they sent it within a day. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, the 49ers game was in 2014. And I joked with my wife. I said, would they have sent me the whole record or just half of it? And so they were actually very professional. When I first requested 2013, they sent me just the 2013 records. I had to do another 2014 request. And the first one was slightly detailed, but the next one that they sent me, it was full detail. You can read it. And so I truly believe with the resources that were out there, the papers beat me by 20 minutes. We had it. They had it. All the major outlets, the news, free press that had journalists on staff had it, and I had it. And I went and I have them in my possession, and you can read the story. But in the end, it wasn't just a bunch of strangers. It was a story in which Dan Campbell was getting a lot of phone calls to his house after the Cowboys game, started getting the contractors show up to his house. And then after the 49ers loss, a classmate of his daughter's put out a Snapchat post that was talking about Dan Campbell's play call, insulting him, and put out his address and doxed him. And unfortunately, you know, Dan Campbell's in San Francisco, so there was some security concerns at the home, and it was something that necessitated police reports. And you can read the detailed police reports, but unfortunately, it was young kids doing things that are inappropriate and being rude. It got investigated by the team and by the league. It got escalated to the point where, hey, this is not kid stuff anymore. So it got more serious. And so I did some research, got the police reports, and then, you know, I'll ask you guys, you know, should I have written about it? Because I got a lot of people read it, and I felt like I did the journalistic job because every newspaper did it, and Christian was on board. I took his advice. We wrote it together. We did the puzzle pieces together. But should I have covered it? Because look, I don't have to hide it. It did tremendous readership. It did beyond all the football stuff. It was in some crazy number territory of how many people were interested. But at the same token, I am human. But I never, you know, in my mindset, I always go, okay, is this information that should be covered, and will it be covered by somebody else? If my brain would have thought that nobody else would have covered it, I might not have did it. But the moment I was going, Christian, man, I can't believe I didn't get the 2014 report. Let me go get it. The second I got it, the newspaper had put it out. So,
well, you mean 2024?
And I believe they knew. Somebody, I believe the paper told someone at the police probably told them, hey, there's some asshole podcaster asking for these records, because they had a nice detailed report. And it just, I felt like I did journalism. I felt like I did what was necessary, but at the same time, you do feel like it's kind of detailed, and it talked about some things that some people would say, leave the man alone, it's not needed. But it was going to get out there no matter what. So you have to have it. You have to.
Yeah, Doc. I mean, I'll say real quick. I think you mean 2023, 2024, right? Is that what you meant?
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Yeah,
2000.
No,
yeah. Sorry. Yeah. 2023 and 2024. I'm sorry.
Last year. That T is getting to you, Doc. You got to stop drinking that tea.
Those long hours watching film and Netflix got to be 23 and 24 last year and this year. So what happened was I requested half the file like a dumbass, and they sent me half the file, and then I had to request it. I had to do 2 requests, and I got the information in regards to what happened, and it was detailed, and you can read it. And
hey,
it's just public knowledge. And to me, that's why I felt like, to me, Christian said, oh yeah, we knew right away the news and free press were going to do it. Once you see police reports, and once guys, I'm talking, when I say the readership was crazy, it was crazy. People were interested in it.
Doc, I think you did the right thing. I mean, I think you did the right thing, because I think, for number one, I think your audience appreciates that. I think people like reading other things than just football updates or football opinions or football rumor. Like it's a real life human being, like Dan Campbell, going through something that is sick. Like, it's unfortunate that he has to go through something like that, but I think it's great material. Like, I know maybe people would say, well, you know, why bring it up again? I think it's important. I think it's important to humanize Dan Campbell. Like, the dude's, he's a coach, he's an icon in the city, but at the end of the day, he's a dad. You know, he's a normal guy. And the fact that, you know, some dumbass, did they get him, by the way? Like, what happened with that? Did the kid get in trouble? I'm assuming he had to get in some sort of legal.
It wasn't a criminal offense. They did investigate it. The family got involved and talked to Dan Campbell's family. Look, it's kid stuff. So the threat level in terms of the security of Dan Campbell was low. But yeah, he was talked to. The individual was talked to make sure that, hey, you know, there's consequences for your actions, and hey, you put some people's information out there, there's some serious consequences for doing stuff like that. So it got out of hand, and it got serious in regards to people going to Dan Campbell's house the night after the loss, and it was something that necessitated it. As a parent, you naturally would get concerned. You're out of town, and there's people acting a fool in front of your house. You know, it's unfortunate. Yeah, and like I said, once it got out there and once people were looking into it, you cannot not cover it. That's the part. But I do say I was conflicted. But in those moments, I talked to the staff and we said, hey, is anybody else going to have it? They're like, absolutely. They're all going to have it. Try to be first. Because the first story I did was the about the 49ers, and then we got the actual details of it. You knew it's out there, so you just have to do it. And it was beneficial to the site and to the job. But, you always look at it and you say, why didn't some of the beat writers actually write, why didn't they do it? None of the beat writers, because they'll say, well, that's a news story, but it involves the Lions. So, to me, I'm a one-stop shop. I just, to give you guys insights, as a manager of a site, your job is to decide what goes on the site, what content, and I'm the final decider of what goes on that Lions site. And I looked at it, I debated it, I wrestled with it, and I just said, look, man, the numbers would be crazy. People would see it. It's news. It's related to the Lions. It has to be talked about. It just has to be. And I would feel frustrated with myself that I wasn't doing my job if, every site had it. And Christian's the best, bouncing ideas off of him. He's a true hardcore journalist. He's the more level-headed guy, and I'm the more emotional hothead. So to have him working with me, he's a true talent and, a great asset to our site because he levels me out and he's got the journalistic official background. And credit to Evan Petzold. He recommended Christian to me, and Christian's been nothing but an asset, a truly nice guy who has the utmost respect for journalism, and he brings our site the journalistic credibility that allows a lot of people to come check it out.
Hey, Doc, did the Lions, did they try and come at you or anything? Did they get upset?
No. They're not. Listen, we are, the most important thing is to be accurate and not to be sensationalistic. And look, the headlines, I understand sometimes have to be a little bit enticing, but I truly don't believe I'm clickbait. The true definition of clickbait means, hey, oh my God, Jared Goff is wild. And then you just talk about something completely different. The headlines just have to entice people because some people just only read that. But at the same token, by now, they know I've been there 6 years. They know I'm not just some fly-by-night person. They know that I have an audience. And what are they going to do? Like, if they were to say something, we talk about it, debate it, or anything like that. But what the Lions think about a topic does not enter my mind. What enters my mind is, are the readers going to be okay with it? Are we factually accurate? And to the degree of time we put into it, is it worth it for me to write it? And typically we are just covering a lot more topics. But yeah, we listen. I always kind of looked at it like, in terms of topics we cover, if it intrigues me, I write it. If I would like to read it, because I feel like I'm the common fan that is a consumer of everybody's content. If I like it, I'll write it. And what others think about it outside of my circle. Yeah, outside of my circle, I do not care about too much.
No, well, there you go.
Out there for a second.
Yeah, you did. You cut out for a second, Doc. It made me nervous. I thought you were like thinking about something.
Lions like hacking his household or something. Right?
Yeah, it's like the Lions like, Doc, stop.
They hacked my house. Like, get out.
It's
hey,
like
just with that, and I do think, Doc.
Am I still good here? Did my internet die out?
Yeah, you're good.
No, you're all good. We hear you. I just want to throw this out there. Like, you should 100% talk about that stuff every time it happens. I think that was great. I want to ask a question just with all of this. Why did it come out? And I don't think it was you, but I think it's just everything started to come out a little bit with the Bucs loss. And like nothing else happened before that. And this happened back early in the year. I think we would have lost time. I was trying to be a pro. I was trying to be a pro and trying to outlast my question until he got back. But it just, as I was going, I was putting filler words in and I was filling in.
No, he's intrigued.
The Booner path. Well, Doc, let me tell you something about the Booner path. All right, Doc, let me tell you a little.
Hey, Boone, get after his ass now. Hey,
no, there he goes.
Shout out to Doc.
It was great. You know what, Boone? You had a question. I knew that was a good question. Like
I just wanted to know why, honestly, and this is legit. Like I was thinking about it the whole time. I'm just wondering, and I don't think Doc was the one that put it out first, but I think after the Bucs game, everything started getting leaked on what happened. I'm wondering why after the Bucs game, because there are some people in the chat, And again, it wasn't the doc, but Doc, once everything started coming out, he looked into it and figured it out. I was just interested more so like it made it, because I remember we came on air right after the Bucks game and that news came out, and we all thought too that it would happen after the Bucks game, and we were all like, why is this happening? It's the second week of the season. What are people doing? And then Doc came out on Wednesday and was like, no, that happened last year. And it was like, how does that, like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, how did that not come out? Like, we knew about the contractor stuff early, didn't know about the kid stuff. And then all of a sudden in September, after a Bucks loss, just randomly the next day, people are like, oh, there's people showing up to Dan's house. And then the doc was like, well, that house got sold. He moved. So like, that was why I was like, that was weird that it took so long to come out, even though we heard about the contractor stuff in January.
I want to say real quick, by the way, interview is brought to you guys by BetUS. Check them out. Appreciate the doc. I know he had some internet issues. But to answer that, and I know Doc just put it in there, I heard after the Cowboys game, I remember reading something that contractors were sent out to Dan Campbell's house.
I knew that. I'm saying the other stuff, no one knew about that until after this Bucks game. Like months, a whole off-season
Well, he's
later.
moving too. I wonder if that has something to do with it.
But the doc, I think, and I could be wrong, he's in the chat. The doc said that he already had moved. Like that was like, and the house got put up on sale. I guess
read
maybe
somewhere he's building a house currently in Grosse Pointe.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like he's still like building it, or he might be moved in.
It's just weird that came out so late.